Why you follow certain people and not others? Have you questioned if you have to be born a certain way to be a leader? Well, I have. Growing up in Tunisia, I was never the dominant or the leader in the group, and I used to follow and look up to certain characters in my environment. But I always questioned whether leaders are a product of nature or nurture. And due to young age and lack of experience, I concluded that leaders are born leaders. But that all changed when I moved to Turkey. After only a few months of living here, I started noticing that people around me listened and were influenced by me, and almost everyone around me sought my approval and liking. This aroused an internal conflict and triggered the question of whether leaders are born or made, and made me question my previous conclusion. From that point forward, I embarked on a new journey to uncover the answer. And after traveling more than 10 countries, mastering 3 languages, and attending an international school with more than 27 nationalities, I stand before you, ready to share my insights and reflections from what I have learned along the path to leadership. As I was first contemplating about the meaning of leadership, my first instinct was to open a dictionary, which defined a leader as someone in control of a group, country, or situation. And I remember thinking, I have to be better than everyone. However, reflecting upon those moments now, I can confidently say that I couldn't have been further from truth. So, what does a leader actually mean? A leader is someone who's creative, someone who's constantly changing and evolving, someone who has the ability to plan, someone who has a vision, someone who asks what and why, someone who takes accountability, someone who's an executor, someone who creates heroes as they take the role of a growth catalyst, bringing out the full potential of everyone around them. And finally, someone who seizes opportunities. Now that I have recognized the essence of leadership, I press forward on my journey towards becoming a leader. And after lengthy search, I came to the conclusion that leadership is a lifelong path with 4 main doors blocking the way. And it is my pleasure to hand you those 4 keys on a silver platter. Before we dive into our first key, let me ask you to reflect for a moment. Think about the tasks you handle on every day. Now, let's categorize them to 4 groups. First are the important and urgent tasks. Second are the important but not urgent tasks. Third are the not important but urgent tasks. And lastly are neither important nor urgent tasks. These are the 4 quadrants of priority set by Stephen Covey, author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If I ask you right now, which of these is your priority? Many would instinctively refer to the first quadrant, which includes important and urgent tasks. And I don't blame them, since it seems to be the obvious and logical answer. But what if I tell you, contrary to the common belief, important and not urgent is a leader's priority? You might ask why. Well, urgency, while often seen as a motivator, increases stress and the likelihood of failure. And the pressure it creates can lead to rushed decisions and ultimately diminish long-term goals. So instead of waiting for important tasks to become urgent, we should proactively address them, allowing us to manage our priorities much more effectively. So, what does this have to do with our first key? Our first and arguably most important key is strategy. And setting our priorities right is one of the main elements of strategy. Another element is identifying strengths and weaknesses and building a well-thought-of plan around those attributes. After finishing with that, we move on to organization, which includes how, where, and when the plan will be executed. But here's where many people stumble. Despite being young, I've met numerous people who are ambitious and great planners, but never end up backing their words with action. This is also where perfection comes into the conversation. Execution isn't merely about doing things, it's about doing them well. But what does doing them well really mean? As I was researching this topic, I find that many view perfection as more harmful than beneficial to leaders. The arguments include concerns such as fear of failure and how it can inhibit innovation and risk-taking. Another concern is the waste of time and effort by focusing on unnecessary details. Ironically, true perfection isn't about flawless results. It's about perfection and learning from failure. perfection in spotting out what truly matters, and perfection in consistently doing our best, no matter how small the task. And if you take one step back and take a look at the full picture, you'll see that perfection forms a part of a broader puzzle. Every piece matters, even the tiniest bit corners. The puzzle of leadership is built from organization, creativity, vision, and much more. And yes, perfection is one of those pieces. Without it, the full picture will never come into focus. And this brings us to a question I've often heard. What are the outcomes of lack of strategy? Many people don't do it, and they're doing well. But appearances can be deceiving. You see, short-term success with no strategy is like walking on thin ice. It holds until it cracks. For instance, we've all heard countless stories of great warriors, the battles they fought, and the brilliant strategies they employed to outwit their enemies. So let me take you back to around 218 BC, during the Second Punic War. Hannibal Barca, a name that struck fear into the heart of Rome. He was a fearless commander, a brilliant strategist, and a master of the battlefield. Against all odds, he led his army, including war elephants, across the Alps mountains into Italy. He won battle after battle, humiliating the mighty Roman legion. But while Hannibal focused on defeating Rome in their own land, he overlooked something critical: his own home, Carthage. And when Rome turned the tides and took the war back to Carthage, Hannibal returned. But it was way too late. Cornered, defeated, and abandoned by his people, Hannibal chose to end his own life. His story is a powerful lesson. Even the greatest tactical genius can fall if there is no broader strategy beyond the battlefield. Moving on to our second key. They say that character is who you are when no one's watching. But leadership is who you are when the whole world is watching and listening. But don't be fooled. The words I, me, and my. These words can silently and quietly take over our conversations, our decisions, and even our leadership. I used to think that leadership was about standing in front of a room, casting a vision, and giving a powerful speech and getting everyone on board. But I missed something important. And it took me years to realize that people don't follow your words. People follow your character, they follow your actions, and they follow how you communicate with them. Because think about it. How many times have you been in a conversation where someone was speaking at you, but not with you? Where the words were loud, but the connection was silent? We've all been there, whether it was in a classroom, at a meeting, or even at a family dinner, where communication was happening, but no one was really listening. So if there's one skill that every leader should master, it's not just speaking, it's communicating and listening with intention. Leadership isn't about having the loudest voice in the room. It's about creating a room where every voice feels heard. Communication isn't a soft skill, it's a leadership skill. It's the bridge between your vision and your team's trust. And listening, that's the foundation the bridge stands on. Many leaders have great ideas, but like John Maxwell said, don't fall in love with the sound of your own voice. I used to think that my ideas had to be the best ones, the final ones, but in truth, great ideas are rarely a one person's light bulb moment. They're usually 3 to 4 ideas smashed together, shaped by different experiences and different voices. And how do you get those voices? Simple. You learn to listen. In brief, leadership starts with your character, grows through your communication, and comes to life through listening. Our third key is related to something that holds utmost value to human beings, something non-renewable and irreplaceable: time. As time moves swiftly, its value increases as we make the most of it. Therefore, effective time management is crucial for leadership. Time management splits in 2 parts: delegation and effective time use. First, what is the meaning of delegation? Delegation, in simple terms, is the act of entrusting tasks and responsibilities to others. We've spoken about communication, and that's where the trust is built. But delegation, that's where you put that trust to use. Great leaders don't try to do everything themselves. They build teams and they trust them. Once again, John Maxwell put it best when he said, "If you want to do few things right, do them yourself. But if you want to do great things and have big impacts, learn to delegate." As a leader, you have to learn when to relinquish control at the right time and the right places, so you could focus on the people, the vision, and the impact. Delegation doesn't mean that you're lazy or you don't want to do the work. It means that you're thinking bigger. It means that you're creating space for others to contribute, to shine, and to take ownership. And that's how real impact is made, not alone, but together. So, where can we see this in our daily life? Even something as small as secretary taking care of all the urgent but routinious work is a great example. It shows how delegation keeps the leader focused, the team organized, and the time used wisely. Moving on to effective time use. We've all heard the term one step ahead, but what does it actually mean? Would you believe me if I tell you that you can live up to 25 hours a day? Probably not, but it is indeed possible. You can either go live on Mars or simply use your lost time. To better understand what lost time is, picture this. Two people are cooking pasta. They both cut the vegetables, make the sauce, boil the water, add the pasta, and wait for it to cook. As they both waiting, the first person goes on their phone. The second person goes to wash the dishes and clean the workspace. After they both finish eating, the first person goes to wash the dishes and clean the workspace, and the second person goes to perform other tasks. Now, let's draw a timeline for each of them. If you look closely at the second person's timeline, you'll notice that cleaning the workspace isn't there, as if it never happened. And if you look even closer, you will see a second sub-timeline appearing. And that's your lost time. Now, if you take that to the 24-hour mark, you will notice that the second person is one step ahead and one step extra, as if he had stopped time or had an extra hour. And that's how delegation and effective time use create great leaders. Now, let's delve into the heart of leadership. This key I've personally struggled with, although it seems simple, is often overlooked. Embracing a solution-oriented mindset, which is basically believing that there's a solution to every problem, and most importantly, not finding problems in solutions. Once I discussed this key with a friend. He didn't think much of it at first, as its meaning lies in its name. Later that day, we were sitting together and having a conversation. The topic of electric cars came up. Mid-conversation, he said with mounting frustration, "You know, electric cars aren't really helping the planet. Electricity still comes from fossil fuel, and it's just another illusion." And he kept going on and on about how electric cars are harming the nature. After a while, I found myself interrupting him and pointing out that he was finding problems in solutions. And I continued by saying, electric cars aren't the perfect answer. They're a step forward. They're the part of the solution, not the final destination. And by dismissing them entirely, you're closing the door on progress before it even begins. And towards the end, I was luckily able to convince him that the real trap isn't the size of the problem, it's the mindset and the mentality you bring into it. We all tend to do this in our daily life without realizing it. We often close doors rather than finding exits. So I ask you today, before embarking on any task or conversation, to ask yourself, am I contributing to the solution, or am I finding the problems in it? I know it's a confronting question, but trust me, leadership demands that type of honesty. The notion is that solutions are rarely perfect, and a great leader is always on the path seeking better and more effective solutions. It's about recognizing progress, leaving room for improvement, and shifting focus from why is this not working to how can we make this work better. Now, as we stand at the end of the path, it's clear now. Leadership is not a title. It's not about being the loudest in the room, the oldest in the group, or the one with the most authority. It's about being intentional, visionary, accountable, creative, and strategic. Leadership is the friends who checks on you when no one else does. The siblings who sets by example without knowing it. The mother who silently carries the weight of the family. The boss who empowers instead of commands. The student who takes initiative. And the stranger who steps in when everyone else freezes. You see, leadership is not limited to the few. It's expected of all of us. Whether you choose it or not, you have influence, and with it comes responsibility. It's clear now that everyone is a leader in some form, and we're all obligated to sharpen that role, to grow, to rise, and to evolve. And that's the ultimate truth. You don't choose to be a leader. You realize that you're already one, and you work every day to be a better one. Leadership is not a destination. It's a decision. And it's a decision. We make every day, not for ourselves, but for everyone watching, following, and growing because of us. And so, the keys are now in your hands. The doors are before you. What will you unlock? Thank you.